You know, I was gonna, start the show off laughing, but I can't. I felt bad for President Biden last night. I felt like helping an old man across the street. You know how sometimes you're in a room, you go like this? Man, wow, was that uncomfortable. Supposedly 60 million people watched that thing last night. 60 million people saw that thing. By the way, I didn't think that was a good look for America last night. And you got that kind of stuff going on. It was great television. But boy, how about this? Everybody watched the train wreck last night, and you felt bad for the guy. I did. I'm not lying. I did. I felt bad for the guy. And then, today with a prompter and all, he was way better. I mean, obviously. But last night, with no help or no anybody, you did 7 days. You took time off from being president of the United States for 7 days for that thing last night. Wow. It was like a Nick Sirianni game plan. I was like, hey, man. It was like Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni and the difference between the two talking about football. I was crazy last night. So let's just move on from that. Let's come together here today with sports. I tell you, after a scene like that last night that divides our country, the coolest thing about what we do each and every single day, doesn't matter what a political affiliation you have, we come together here as sports fans. It's a common denominator. That's one of the very few I think that's why you're seeing some really good things going on when it comes to sports and the ratings. NHL ratings through the roof for the Stanley Cup Finals. I do. I think that's one of the reasons that Americans just want to get away from all that, no matter who you are. NHL had absolutely killer ratings. Caitlin Clark, the WNBA, all of that, massive ratings with her. So, again, I think it's cool, man. Yeah, I saw that, Joseph. Bronny James. Isn't that funny, Joseph? They gave Caitlin Clark shit for some people bitching about her not being on the Olympic team. She deserves to be on that team, but Bronny James gets drafted. Nobody would have drafted that guy if it wasn't for LeBron James. Nobody would have took him. He stunk at USC. He's not an NBA prospect, but he's LeBron's kid. He's 6 feet tall. You think that's Allen Iverson? The guy had 3 points a game at USC and didn't start. And he gets drafted. He's one of the top 55 players in the world as prospects in basketball. That was another one. But hey, LeBron James is so great he gets his kid drafted. And that's something. That's how good he was, because he had nothing to do with being good himself. Had nothing to do with it. My wife gets on my shit about it, though. She goes, when you want your daughter drafted, when you want to help I get it. Yeah. Okay. Sills, Iverson versus Curry. Who wins? AI. Let me ask you something, Cosmo. Have you ever seen Allen Iverson locked down by anybody? Have you ever seen anybody lock down Allen Iverson? Okay? Have you ever seen anybody defend him? Hey, I saw him drop 49 on Kobe. I saw him put 49 points on Kobe one night. Oh, by the way, we have to with our trademark. Big Cells. 24 days out to the start of training camp. 70 days from today, you will be playing a football game in Sao Paulo, Brazil, against the Green Bay Packers. 70 days from today, you're going to be playing a football game against one of the football teams that I like this year in the NFC. I mean, no doubt about it. We're going to take a look at the NFC East here today. We're also going to look at the roster. And I'm not going to go down position for position here, but we're going to go and look at the strength of the team and some of the weak areas of the team. We're going to also, like I said, we're going to look at the NFC East. We'll probably start there with the opponents that the Eagles are going to have to play in the division this year. But it's been a crazy week. There's been a lot said about Jalen Hurts this offseason. Some true, some not, I think. I can't wait for listen, I think we've done all the evaluation we possibly can right now. Okay, I do. I think that all the stuff that we've seen, I think right now, it's pretty much been said. Let me show you something here. And I'll ask a question, but I'll put context behind it. You guys do think that Kellen Moore is an upgrade at the offensive coordinating position, right? And from 2019 to 2022, by the way, please hit the like button. We are trying to get to 200 likes each and every single day. You guys believe that Kellen Moore is an upgrade. Okay, right? He's an upgrade. Okay? He's an upgrade from what we saw a year ago. JM goes, he has more experience. I trust his ability to correct more than what Brian Johnson did. Jack says yes. Correct adjustments. Cosmos says no. Well, let's take a look at him as an offensive coordinator in Dallas before we get into these other topics here. In 2018, he was the quarterback coach in Dallas. In 2019 through 2022, he was the OC in Dallas with Dak Prescott. Sorry for calling you a dumb fuck after watching the debate last night, Sills. I apologize. Good one, Prince. I'm not a Prince. I think that's kind of a backhanded slap, dog. That's a facetious and it's a sarcastic apology. Not accepted. Not accepted, dude. I know who you are. Hey, Prince, I know who you are, guy. You're not fooling me, okay? That is sarcastic, and you don't mean it. You do not mean it. Okay, it is pretty funny, though. Jack, I agree. It is pretty funny. What? Prince's like, what? Me? No, it's not. Yeah, okay, guy. I know, man. All good, man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Hey, man, I'm going to try to stay away from that shit from last night. I'm going to do my best. I want to give you guys some, how about this? Some encouragement here on Kellen Moore. Here's who Kellen Moore and what he's done when he was in Dallas. Easy, Xander. I just told the guy I wanted to get out of the room, and now he's, yeah, okay. I got it. Dan, how did Sirianni is unable to adapt a complex system down to the point a moron can run it. I think Moore can dumb it down a bit for Hurts to function in it also. I'm not going anywhere near that stuff. Leave me alone. Hey, it's elderly abuse, man. I'm not doing it. I'm not going there. Trying to do a show. Leave me alone. Oh, my God. So here's Kellen Moore's offenses in Dallas and what he did. 2019, 431 yards a game. He was first in the league. 2020, 371.8 yards a game. Cowboys were 14th. 2021, 407. They were first. In 2022, the Dallas Cowboy offense was 354.8 yards a game. That was 11th. So if you take a look at that, in the 4 years that he was the offensive coordinator in Dallas, 2 of those years, Dak Prescott had the number 1 offense in the National Football League. I mean, that's pretty good. But why was he fired? 2022, they went down to 11th. I think that had a lot more to do with personnel issues that Jerry didn't put around the team. So if you're the Eagles, you look at that and you go, 4 to 5 years in our own division, the Cowboys had the number 1 offense. I'll take that. I'll hire that. That and 20, that's right. I thought it was. I thought that was the year that Dak Prescott broke his foot in New York, if I'm not mistaken. That's right, Sam, right? He hurt his foot against the Giants, right? That year in 20, somewhere like towards the middle of the season. That's pretty respectable to be in the middle of the league losing your number 1 quarterback. And remember, Dak Prescott was under the umbrella of working on a contract, and they were constantly going back and forth on a contract conversation with Jerry Jones. So, I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff here. Okay? 2 of the 4 years, he had the number 1 offense in the National Football League. I mean, CeeDee Lamb. Back then you had Amari Cooper. 21, you didn't have Amari. I don't think you did. Or maybe that was the year they jettisoned him in the offseason. Then he went to Cleveland. But that's pretty good stuff. So you should be optimistic. What will he bring? The question mark again, though, this is not really about Kellen Moore here. This is going to be about, can Kellen Moore coach that style of football? I think it's more on Kellen than it is on Jaylen. Now, Jaylen's got to go out and execute player accountability. But what if Kellen can't teach him the things that he needs to get better? Dak Prescott last year finished second in the MVP race. He led the NFL in touchdown passes. That's a good player. The Cowboys are good. Okay? The Cowboys are a good team run by Dak Prescott. He's good. Dak and Jaylen isn't the same quarterback. Hey, John, I know that. That connection between Kellen Moore is going to be the significant thing this year that is going to determine whether or not the Eagles are going to have the success that they need. And I'm talking about how far they're going to go. I think the Eagles, get this, do I think the Eagles are going to put up numbers like they did a year ago? I do. Do I think they're going to go far into playoffs? I don't. And you're going, how do you know that? I don't know that yet. It's June 28th. I'll have to wait and see it. But my prediction is this is going to be a slow start like it was a year ago, like it was in 21 with a new offense. Every year that Jalen Hurts has had a new offense, it struggled out of the gate. 2021, 2023, it struggled out of the gate. Every time he's got a new coordinator. Because remember, Shane Steichen had a year and a half. I keep bringing that up. John says, I'm positive it's going to fail. I'm not positive. I just want to see it. But Kellen Moore's resume shows you that this is going to be a lot like Vic Fangio on the other side of the ball. Is this going to come down to player accountability and player ability? Because I don't really think it's going to come down to scheme. And once again, the comment we made yesterday, the offense wasn't bad last year. It just wasn't bad. That offense was not bad last year. All those guys had really great years. Okay? Unless Jaylen turns into Steve Young, well, he's never going to be that. He's never going to be Steve Young. He's not that kind of player. Sills makes sense with the Shane statement and having a year and a half with Hurts. Hey, he did. He had a year and a half. He's the only coordinator that Jalen Hurts has had in the last 4 years that had more than a year to work with the offense. Think about it. And Shane Steichen implemented that offense in 2021, once he took over from Nick Sirianni, because Nick's not a play-calling RPO guy. I'll guarantee you Shane Steichen could not have had the success in 2021 running a pass-oriented offense. You know how we know that? He's not doing that in Indianapolis now. He hasn't reverted back to looking for a drop-back quarterback. He's got Anthony Richardson now. I think they'll try to run a distributed pass attack that Hurts will fail at. Then he'll regress on the offense to some favor of the RPO. That could go. So you're saying they're going to roll back to that. We'll see. But Kellen Moore has had success in the league. You know, I got this because Xander said something the other day. You know, I'm confident this guy's a good coordinator. He is. He is a good coordinator. His resume speaks to it. Now, look, when you get fired in Dallas, that's not an indictment. God knows you could be fired in Dallas for anything. Seals Moore needs to embrace the Hurts unique skills. If he does, this will help Hurts get comfortable with the changes Hurts will need to make. If Moore gives him some early, he'll gain more later. Okay? I think you got to run the ball early too. I think that's what you're saying, Bob. Okay, he was the favorite to win the MVP through 11 games last year. How did he struggle? You tell me, Martin. Well, then why was Brian Johnson? Get this, Martez. Then if Brian Johnson had a player that was an MVP candidate 85% of the season, why'd you fire him? Why'd you fire him? If the Philadelphia Eagle management didn't think the offense struggled, why'd you fire the offensive coordinator? According to you, Jaylen didn't struggle. Well, Brian Johnson was the head of the offense. The organization obviously thought something. He brought a quarterback coach in too. Can't have it both ways, my friend. Either the offense struggled and you fired a guy and you got a guy fired, or you didn't. You can't use that metric for others and not your guy. So hypothetically, if they make the championship or Super Bowl, how do you keep the coaching staff from leaving? You don't. When Nick had Phillip Rivers, he threw to RBs. Moore includes RBs in his passing game. It's up to Hurts to change that part of his game. Suplex, Nick Sirianni and Phillip Rivers. What I don't get is, and I hear Jalen Hurts constantly saying that that's the guy he falls back on because that's Nick Sirianni's guy. Why would you watch a guy that has nothing to do with your skill set? Now, are you trying to pick up the way he has pre-snap reads? Phillip Rivers is sensational at it. Hey, and by the way, do you know Phillip Rivers' father was also a high school football coach too? And Phillip Rivers was coached by his father, who was a high school coach. So there's a lot of similarities there on how he looks at Phillip Rivers. Obviously, totally different skill set guys. But he's a really great pre-snap guy. Hurts hasn't or wasn't drafted to be this guy than trying to make him. Absolutely agreed. Again, the dynamic is going to be these two components. I think Nick Sirianni has nothing to do with the growth. Nothing to do with the growth of Jalen Hurts this year. I think it all comes down to what Kellen does. Okay? I think it all comes down to what Kellen Moore does. I mean, look, again, like I said, he was the quarterback coach in 18. 2019, 431 and a half yards, which was first in the league. 20, Dak gets hurt. They still were 14th at 372 yards a game. 2021, they were first at 406. In 22, 354.8, they dipped a little bit outside the top 10, and they were 11. That's pretty good numbers. That's pretty good numbers for a coordinator. And for all the people that say Dak Prescott's horseshit, that's not true, really. They've won a boatload of games. They've won 36 games in the last 3 years. And I get the postseason. Yeah, I get it. It's not that easy to win in the postseason when you play quarterback in this league. There's very few guys with great records that have played in the NFL in the Super Bowl era that have great records. There's like 4 of them. You understand that? There's like 4 quarterbacks that have great postseason records. The rest of them are all around 500 or below it. Many of the Hall of Fame quarterbacks are below that number. Okay? I mean, it's not that. I think I've told you before, Rodgers is 1 game above 500. And John is right. Rivers is in the era of Peyton Manning, Roethlisberger, his brother even, Eli, and Brady. No question about it. Seals, is Jalen Carter the best defensive tackle Vic Fangio has had? Let me see. It's a great comment. Is he the best defensive tackle prospect that he's ever had? Vic Fangio. Let me see here. See here. Is Jalen Carter the best defensive tackle he's ever? Every time I see that Milford Academy, I keep forgetting that he recruited me to go play there when I was in Connecticut. Let's see. Philadelphia Stars. That was a good football team. He was a defensive assistant. Coordinator in Carolina, 95 to 98. That kid Brunson was good there. Colts. I don't think so. Coordinator in Indianapolis from 1999. It's under Jim Mora. I don't think Dwight Freeney was there yet. Houston Texans. I think Jadeveon Clowney was there and J.J. Watt was there. J.J. Watt's a great end. Probably his greatest end. He was the D coordinator. He was the defensive coordinator in Houston. D coordinator from 2011 to 14. I can't think anybody in there. Yeah, probably. Okay, probably. But Angelo, prospect-wise, we're talking here. I heard Zaner talking about that when they were saying that, hey, you'd like to see a little bit more. I want to see a little bit more. You know what? What's the one thing you want to see Jalen Carter do this coming season? What's the one thing you want to see out of him? Saints had stud linebackers. They did, JM, when he was down there as the defensive linebacker coach. What's the one thing you want to see out of Jalen Carter this year? I'll tell you what it is. Can you play at a consistent level for 17 weeks? And then getting into the postseason. Can you play like a pro? Last year, he played like a rookie. And when you pay, that's right, not fade. And JM, it's not so much in shape. It's football shape and conditioning. He was super dominant early, but he couldn't keep that up. But that was expected. If anybody expected him, didn't you notice it was around week 12 and 13 that he started fading? Well, that's how many games he plays most of the time at Georgia. 12, 13, 14 games. It was going to be around that number. He was going to start walking back the other way. Every rookie goes through that. You start fading. You know it. And you know it when you see it. And JM's right. They used him wrong too a little bit. No question about it. 800 snaps is a shit. I'll tell you something here too, Suplex. Jalen Carter playing 800 snaps, that's probably more snaps than he played in his last 2 years at Georgia combined. That is a ton of work, 800 snaps. That's a lot of work for a rookie. I mean, 800? Shit. You're putting a lot of time in. And if you're not in shape, it's going to wear on you by the end of the year. All right. So let's get into, and instead of going down the line here and looking at the Eagle roster here, I'm going to do this. How many people look at the NFC East as being a team that's going to produce two teams potentially to go to the playoffs this year? How good is the NFC East going to be in your eyes? How good will the East be? By the way, Xander will be with us for a little bit at 3:30. Jason Cole at 4:30. Philly Godfather at 5:30. How good? Kyle says I don't. NFC East sucks. I don't, Sills. One team, I think there's going to be a team. I think the bottom team is going to really play well. Washington. JM says not great. Giants are a 3-win team. We're going to look at all the teams here except for the Eagles in the NFC East here in a second. Philly, we will be the only team to make the playoffs this year. Washington might be a playoff team next year. I like Washington. I do. I like what Washington is doing. Giants are going to sneak up. I do not see it. I don't. You want to start with the Giants? Let's do the Giants. I'm going to take a look at the NFC pre-camp East teams as we're 27 days out to the start of training camp. Here's how I see the Giants. Joe Shonen's general manager, in my opinion, is a train wreck. Every single move that guy has made has absolutely imploded on the organization. From the contract extension to the lack of picking up the fifth-year option on Daniel Jones, the contract you gave him, the Waller deal, the allowing of Barkley to walk out the building. I am really trying to sit here as a former Giant fan trying to figure out, what are you doing? I don't see it. I mean, this guy is nowhere near the type of talent level that Jerry Reese was. Jerry Reese put together Super Bowl contending teams each and every single year, and it started on the defensive side of the ball and in the O-lines. How is this guy still the general manager of the New York Giants? I don't get it. Offensively, they have really nothing. That 2022 season where they went 9-7-1, that was a fluke year. They're more of the 6-11 team of a year ago. I mean, you want to talk about one-year wonder? That New York team, and get this, here's where if you're the Eagles and you look at what they did with Jalen Hurts off of 22, 2022, they gave Hurts that contract. You could debate whether or not they gave it to him. You can't debate with Daniel Jones that they paid him on 1 year, and the Giants are trying to do what the Eagles did, but they gambled completely wrong. This guy's been a total, absolute, colossal disaster. I don't get it. Brian Dable, I like him as a play caller, but as a head coach, so he gets into a bitching match with Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale wants to keep some of his defensive assistants, and the guy wants to make changes on that side of the ball because you know why? Just like in Philadelphia, ownership and general manager came down and said someone has to be the scapegoat. Who are you going to put the bullet in the back of the head? And Wink said, I'm not doing it. Got into a screaming match. He got fired. Okay? But that shows you again that coach was not going to sit there and tolerate somebody coming in and messing around with his coaching staff. I give it to Wink. Wink said, no way, man. We are not firing somebody here because you feel the need to justify firing somebody. That's what Philly does. You fired Brian Johnson for no reason. And you made him a scapegoat. And you know what? You tell the lie enough, people will buy it. You keep telling people the lie, they'll buy into it. Brian Johnson sucks. Brian Johnson sucks. No, Brian Johnson was a young play caller. And you hired him with that premise, and you knew that. Get this. I made the comment, why'd you hire a guy that has no experience? The Eagles knew that. So you hired a guy with no experience. He put up a good year, 11 wins. Guys got paid, everybody. Maybe it wasn't the way you wanted the game to be played out. Situational play calling suffered a little bit. But why would you tear that up knowing full well what you hired? You hired him knowing that. Get this. Bleed Green goes, the offense was terrible last year. Well, Bleed Green, help me out here. Okay, get this. Bleed Green goes, hey, they should have been top 3. They were 8th under a first-year play caller. Is that good or bad? What was Kellen Moore in his first year? Kellen Moore was first. These guys were 8th. It's not horrible, especially with a guy who's a first-year play caller. And everybody got paid. Twiz goes, it looked like shit. How could it look? If it looked so bad, once again, you guys refuse to answer the question about how they got paid then, if it looked so horrible. You hired him knowing this. You hired him. You knew it, that he wasn't experienced. So what? You're admitting I shouldn't have hired him? Okay. Dude, for a guy who's a first-year play caller, who got everybody contract extensions, and you fired him, and you knew what he was when he hired him. Hey, dude, wasn't like he was an experienced Kellen Moore. He had no in-game play calling reps. And you knew it. You weren't going to help grow him like you did Shane Steichen. Okay? They got all their numbers early in the season. So? And he out-schemed Vic Fangio. You laughed at Brian Johnson and Sean Desai were first-year play callers. I did. But I didn't make the hires. You knew what you hired, senor. And you regretted it after the fact. Is that right? Or in season, actually, when it came to Desai. I mean, hey, I know he's not with any experience. But you were so pissed off at the end of it, you fired him because you made a poor choice. You hired him. Eagle, you keep telling me, Jaylen didn't really, I hear John McMullen all the time saying this. Jaylen didn't really play all that bad. You know, turnovers, I get it. But he wasn't that awful. So in the first year duty of being the offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, the quarterback, wasn't that awful to John McMullen, and everyone got contract extensions, but he gets fired knowing full well that's what you hired. I don't get how you walk that back. So wait a minute. Did they flip-flop on Brian Johnson? Is that a flip? Hey, senor, is that a flip-flop? Was that a flip-flop? Did the Eagles flip-flop on their decision? That was a total flip-flop, right? Hey, really like this hire, Brian Johnson. We think he's going to be a really good play caller one day. Shit, I heard Tony Romo and people on the air going like this. This guy's going to be a head coaching candidate someday. I think Brian Dable's a good play caller. Do I think he's a good head coach? No. I'm not exactly sure what the expectations are for the New York Giants in 24. What could they possibly be? I mean, and how long are you going to stick with Daniel Jones? Drew Lock going to be your guy? Coming off an ACL too? I mean, no Barkley? Where are you going? If you're the New York Giants in the NFC East, where are you going? I don't get it. And now you're going to replace Saquon Barkley with David Singletary because he played in Buffalo with Brian Dable. Is that right? Is that the guy? David Singletary? He's now down in New York now? Is that your running back and your replacement for Saquon Barkley? Hey, look, I like the draft pick of Malik Neighbors. I like the kid out of LSU. I do. I think he's good. But who's the quarterback getting them the ball? The New York Giants are a train wreck. They added John Runyon in the O-line. That's going to be a helpful factor. Is Drew Lock going to really be the starting quarterback by midseason? I think so. Now, look, their front three, and if you want to go front four, is pretty good. Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. Now you add Brian Burns. It's a pretty good group. But as you walk back towards the back end of the defense, linebackers ain't that hot. In the secondary, you're like, you got rid of Xavier McKinney. He's now playing in Green Bay at a $17 million deal, and you didn't want to pay him. Why? What is the New York Giants doing? I don't see it. No, now also too, Waller's now retired. Where are the New York Giants going? Like, I see no future for them. Hey, maybe they surprise people. But where are the New York Giants going? I say this to you. What did somebody say? The Giants are a 3-win team? You're going to have a new head coaching job opening when it comes to New York Giants at the end of this season. There's going to be a head coaching opportunity. And it's going to be in New York. Is that job maybe that Bill Belichick wants to take and go back finally to New York, where he cut his chops really as one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time and try to turn that thing around in New York? He always coveted the New York job. Would that be an open for him? Maybe. But when you're 70 years old, man, do you really want to go in there on a 3-win team and try to turn that bitch around like that? I don't think so. Kimberly, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Dable should go back to Buffalo. I'll tell you something too, JM. If Brian Dable gets fired and Kellen Moore does a good job with Jalen Hurts, I would like to have the guy who coached Josh Allen coaching Jalen Hurts. That's something to keep an eyeball on. I would not mind Brian Dable coaching Jalen Hurts. Run pass option guy? Why not? The best he looked was 2 years ago. I think Joe Barry did a nice job with him down the stretch run, but it was Dable, in my opinion, who really was the guy up there that kind of had some good impact on him as a play caller. I mean, Brian Dable coaching Jalen Hurts? Yeah, okay. He is going to get fired at the end of this year. I don't see it. I got the Giants winning 3 to 5 ball games this year. How's that keep your job, dude? And this guy 2 years ago was the NFL Coach of the Year. That shows you what that award means. Doesn't mean dick. 3 to 5 wins, New York Giants. Wow. Sills, the Donald Trump of sports free speech. 486, thank you. Appreciate the super chat. All super chats get read and sent to the top. That's the only way you get me to respond. I like the American flag on that thing too, pup. But I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Hoss. Didn't Dable coach Jalen? Where would that have been? Was he there at Alabama? Was he an assistant coach at Alabama down there? He may have been. Nice job, Elizabeth. Nice job, Elizabeth. Alabama, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. 2017. Okay, cool. I didn't remember that. All right. You want to do Cowboys or do you want to do Washington next here? Better. Hey, listen. I know it was a big topic last night. I get it. I get it. I watched it. I mean, hey, it was very uncomfortable. You want to do Washington? Joseph Smith says Washington. You want to do Washington? The cow pukes. Let's do Washington. We'll save the Cowboys for last here. Washington Commanders. Joe, you've had 7 straight losing seasons. What happened to the Washington Redskins? What happened? Some said, Sills, you slipped up and said Redskins. I didn't slip up. This show's not politically correct. You lost your identity since you've lost your name. But Sills, that doesn't work here. You got rid of the Redskin name. You got rid of your identity. That Washington football team in D.C., their fans don't even recognize it. Scooter goes, they sucked as the Redskins too. They did? They got 3 Super Bowl rings. How many you got? I'll match their Hall of Famers up against your Hall of Famers any day. Any day. I mean, Washington was an elite football team under George Allen. And when George Allen got there and Lombardi got there in the early 70s, Washington didn't lose. They went from like 73 all the way through the mid-'80s. And they were a great organization with Bobby Beathard, Joe Gibbs, George Allen, Vince Lombardi. They were good. They were a good football organization. Did great jobs in free agency. They drafted well. Washington Redskins then were fantastic. It was the best O-line in football. Eagles Hall of Fame defense is smoking Washington's Hall of Fame defense. Well, I'll tell you what. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback? Let's see. They got one, I think. It's Jurgensen. Jurgensen was also an Eagle, if I'm not mistaken. They got a Hall of Fame running back, John Riggins. Riggins was a Jet, too, but he did his damage in Washington. Got a wide receiver, Hall of Famer, Art Monk. Do you? You do? No, you don't. Quick's not a Hall of Famer. Halfback is Harold Carmichael. Offensive line. The left guard is a Hall of Fame guy, if I'm not mistaken. That was on the Hogs. Darryl Green is a Hall of Fame DB. One of the great cornerbacks of all time. You know, you go back in the day, too, Baugh and them guys. One of the very first organizations, really. And one of the very first organizations, if you want to go back to really, Washington had a whole ton of guys back from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that you would say. Tommy McDonald, fantastic ball player. And again, one of my favorite players of all time, Concrete. Actually, it's pretty close if you think about it. Pretty close. Sills, what do you think of Sean Taylor? Would have been the greatest Washington Commander defensive football player of all time. Fred Smoot was good. Absolutely. Okay. Charles Mann was good. Dexter Manley was good. They had a bunch of really good football players. That was a really, really great time in the NFC East. The hiring of Dan Quinn. By the way, let's do this. Let's walk back here a little bit. I like Adam Peters, the new general manager. I think he's doing some good things there. I think Josh Harris has hired some good folks in his first year there. We're going to find out a little bit how much Wilbur Marshall was sensational there. Came over from Chicago, but he played some really good years in Washington. Some good. Chris Hamburger was there, an unknown guy. But I like Adam Peters. Adam Peters kind of reminds me a little bit of being able to look at the new with the, the analytics and hiring of young guys. I like Adam Peters. I think he's one of the up-and-coming general managers in the National Football League, and I think they're doing good things. Now, the hiring of Dan Quinn, I don't know. I don't know how good that is. I mean, Sills, what do you make of Dan Quinn as the head coach of the Washington Commanders? I don't know. Because when they hired him, I was like, they wanted the guy in Detroit, that guy Johnson. They wanted him to be the head football coach, but he turned it down because he wanted $17 million. If that shit owner steps out of the way, and I'm talking about the new one, Angelo says, that could be good. I agree. I agree. I like Jayden Daniels a lot. I think they got the right guy. We'll see. I'm sitting here on June 28th. He hasn't played it down yet. But I like the LSU/Arizona State kid. I think of all the quarterbacks that got drafted this last draft, I think, in my opinion, when I look at him, I see some pretty good things. And supposedly right now, they're saying some fabulous stuff about him. Now, again, it's pajamas. Washington has cap space, too, so they're going to be able to do some things. Maybe there's going to be a cap casualty during training camp. How about this, too? Cliff Kingsbury, the hire. And Xander and I talked about this a little bit. Cliff Kingsbury wanted to fire Jeff Stoutland. No way, guy. As much as I like Cliff Kingsbury, and I think he would have been a perfect fit for Jalen Hurts, I'm not firing that offensive line coach. Not a chance. Dude, that football team could go 0-17, and I'm not firing Jeff Stoutland. No way. His track record is too good. Hey, I'll make this comparison, and I've done this before to you guys. Jeff Stoutland is as good a coach as Jim Johnson ever was in Philadelphia. I think he's your greatest assistant coach you've had in the last 40 years. That guy produces Hall of Fame dudes. He makes Hall of Famers. He makes people rich. He makes people want to come and play in Philadelphia that are veteran guys who want to resurrect their career or want to have a better career. They come here because of him. Look, Mekhi Becton didn't come to Philadelphia because of any other reason than Jeff Stoutland. That's all you need to have in the building. I don't give a shit. When you're a pro, how much you paying me? How much you paying me, and are you good? Is my coach going to be a coach that's going to get the best out of me? I don't care if it's Carolina, Chicago, Tennessee, wherever. Hey, I'm going to go where Mike Munchak is as the offensive line coach. I'm going to go where Jeff Stoutland is. I'm going to go where Callahan is in Tennessee. And I'm not talking about the kid. I'm talking about the father. I'm going with those guys. Why? They're the best coaches in the sport. Best coaches. Okay? You can't deny it. Lane has been good for 20 years. Dude, that entire offensive. Look at what you have in the O-line. You got a 7th rounder who's the second highest paid left offensive tackle in the sport. You got the highest paid guard who was a 2nd rounder. You got a 2nd round center now. You just got a guy retired that was a 5th rounder. Your right guard is probably going to be Tyler Steen. He's a 3rd rounder. And you got the 5th pick in the draft over at Lane. Look at the variations that you have. You have a high pick and you have one of the lowest picks in the draft. And get this, they're equal and they're formidable. Both your tackles, 5th pick in the draft, 7th rounder. And they're just as good as one another. Can't beat that. That means that guy finds players in any round. It doesn't. I'm not saying he found Lane. Okay, I'm not. I'm saying, but he knows how to work Lane. He knows how to work them. Seals, would you hire McVay or Stoutland? McVay because he's a play caller. But get this, that's compatible. Seals, McVay or Stoutland? Damn, that's a tough one. And I think Sean McVay's the best head coach play caller in the league. That's a tough one. Right? Sills, why should I be high on Vic? He got canned in Denver and was going to get canned in Miami. Because, hey, in Denver, he was a head coach. He wasn't the defensive coordinator. He was the head football coach. It's all right. He drafted Patrick Surtain. He knows talent. Dude, being a coordinator, and like this, I would hire Frank Reich in a minute as an offensive coordinator. Would I hire him as a head coach? No. Would you hire Josh McDaniel as a head coach? No. Would you hire him as a coordinator? Yeah. Imagine the knowledge he has working with Brady for 18 years. Geez, I'd like to have some of that. How about Miami? Well, Sam, they broke sack records in Miami with pressure. All those great Miami Dolphin football teams that they had in the 70s and 60s and 80s and what have you. His first year as a defensive coordinator, he was the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. And he goes down to Miami, and they break the franchise record for most sacks. I mean, is that bad? Saquon's going to be a savage in Philly, unstoppable. Let's wait and see on that one. It's funny, I'm going to make a point to you on that. So I like Cliff Kingsbury. Hey, I'll tell you what. That Johan Dotson kid, is Terry McLaurin the most underrated player in the National Football League? I mean, when you talk about the top flight wide receivers in pro football, Terry McLaurin has to be put in that conversation too. That's a pretty good-looking duo there. I'll tell you this. That's a better duo in Washington. The Washington Commanders have a better wide receiving core than Dallas does. Got a better wideout core than what the Cowboys do. I mean, Brandon Cooks. That's the other option in Dallas. Johan Dotson and Terry McLaurin are better than the Cowboy wideouts. Guy puts up big numbers, great in separation. Yeah, get this. 11 thinks that Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb is better than Johan Dotson and Terry McLaurin. What has Brandon Cooks done? He's been a colossal disaster in Dallas. Are you trying to tell me that Dallas has a number? Who's their number 2 guy? Brandon Cooks? Brandon Cooks. He thinks is better than Johan Dotson. That's not true. Okay, that's not true. Michael Gallup, is he gone from Dallas? I don't know. I didn't see him a year ago. Is Michael Gallup still there? He is. Wake me up when he's not hurt. I'm going to throw a number at you here, and I want you to tell me who this player is. Who is the only running back in pro football in the last 5 years to have 30 touchdowns rushing and 30 touchdowns receiving? Do you know who he is? Do you know who he is? Christian McCaffrey. Joe Mixon. Sproles. I think McCaffrey was hurt. Let me take a look at that. So I want to make sure. McCaffrey, he might be another one. I thought he was like the only guy. Let's see something here with I want to be factual here. Christian McCaffrey stats. Barkley. What are you, high? Let's see here. How many touchdowns he's had in the last 5 years. That's 28, 30. And let's go over here. Receiving 7, 4, 1, 5, 6, 11, 13. No, he doesn't have 30 touchdowns receiving and 30 touchdowns rushing in the last 5 years. Christian McCaffrey does not. Who has 30 rushing touchdowns in the last 5 years and 30 receiving touchdowns in the last 5 years? Derrick Henry, no. You got it. Austin Eckler. Of all the guys that have been hired and signed, you talk about one of the greatest under the radar. Let me take a look at his numbers. Austin Eckler did this damage out in Los Angeles. I don't remember that. He was all pro in 2022. I mean, Austin Eckler stats, kind of crazy in a way. But, I mean, look at this. Last 5 years rushing, 5 touchdowns last year, 13, 12, 11, 3. Okay? Then you go over to receiving. And Eckler had 8, 5, 6, and 1. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I would never have put Austin Eckler's name in that, and I didn't realize he was all pro in 2000. He was all pro in 2022. That's a pretty good-looking team there. If Jayden Daniels is anybody, and their offensive line can hold up, this is why I think they're going to fight for the NFC East. Dude, 11. He's had 30 touchdowns rushing and 30 touchdowns receiving in the last 5 years. You can't dispute production. Okay? You put him in the backfield, and you got those two wideouts. Plus, what they got at tight end, they signed that kid from K-State, Ben Sinnott, and they put Zach Ertz in there. I'll tell you this, they got better depth right now in Washington at tight end than you do. Or as good. That's pretty good stuff. They signed Bobby Wagner, and they also, on defense, got Frankie Louvu. They got the best linebacking core in the NFC East. That's a pretty good-looking roster. Question's going to be Dan Quinn, and what can Cliff Kingsbury do, and Brian Johnson do with Jayden Daniels? Hey, Twisco stats. Yeah, just like your guys. Stats. Just like your guys. Oh, I see. That stats doesn't apply to your dudes, but it applies to everyone else. Try to keep the same metric for everyone. You go places doing that. All your guys had was stats last year, too. They didn't do shit with it. They got paid for it. So wait, okay, it's not stats in Philly, but it's stats in Washington. Oh, all right. Yeah, or okay. Sills, who's Washington's edge rusher? That's going to be a factor that Dan Quinn's going to have to figure out. No question. Their linebacker, and they got rid of the guy, the interior tackle. They sent him to Chicago. Got rid of Chase Young. He's now down in New Orleans. That's going to be an issue on getting to the quarterback. I think they're a little light in the secondary, but that's a good-looking roster, man. I told you. They're building a nice team there in Washington. Adam Peters is doing a nice job. I agree. I think that line took a hit, and it's going to be about getting to the quarterback. Hey, Spin goes, Eckler's washed up. If Eckler's washed up, so's Barkley. He's been hurt 2 of the last 4 years. Is he washed up too? No, he'll be great. Okay. I just showed you a guy that's been more productive than Barkley in the last 5 years on getting the thing getting the pigskin in the end zone. Barkley don't get the pig in. He doesn't get the pigskin in the end zone. This guy does. He was in with Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley. Pretty good stuff, man. Again, it's going to be interesting. I probably think they're going to look for an edge rusher. I see us having a winning record means nothing in the last 3 years because Washington has better stats. My friend, better stats? I didn't say they had better stats. I said they have a good personnel group setting. I never said they're better than the Philadelphia Eagle roster. Who said that? Where did you hear me say that? Who? I mean, I never said that. I said that's a pretty good-looking group. Sills, I think the Eagles' offensive line will help his numbers. I don't. Because they're not going to use him like that. They didn't. Kellen Moore didn't use Tony Pollard like that in Dallas. Why would he use him like that in Philly? He's not going to get 30 carries. He's not going to get 20 carries. He's going to get maybe 9 to 10, 11. If you think they're going to don't they talk about explosion plays? Handing the ball off and RPOs is not up their skirt. That's not what they want. Dude, if Saquon Barkley gets over 1,300 yards this year, I'll be shocked. And quite frankly, that's not an upgrade. That's what you do anyway. Last 2 running backs you've averaged 1,300 yards. And for whatever reason, you get away from it in your play calling. Crazy. I think this team's going to fight out for the NFC East. And it's all going to come down to that quarterback. If that quarterback looks like C.J. Stroud, Washington's going to be a problem. Washington was a problem for you last year. I think they're better now. I think they got better coaches. Kingsbury is a great hire. Barkley easily 1,200 yards. That's not an upgrade. Last year, DeAndre Swift had 1,100. Year before that, Miles Sanders had 1,300. How is that an upgrade? How's that an upgrade? Okay. Here, let's take a look at that. And I actually think that that's not true. Okay? I do. Tony Pollard's stats, and I told you, here. 2020, Tony Pollard had 101 carries. In 2021, so let's do this. He was the offensive play caller from 2019. Let's see here. 86, 101, 130, 193. He wasn't there in 22 or 23. So 4 years. That's right. Let's see how many average carries that Pollard had. 101 plus 86 plus 130 plus 193 equals, divided by 4 equals. So he averaged 114 carries a year, divided by 17. He averaged 6 carries a game in his 4 years under Kellen Moore. 6 carries a game. 21, 22. Okay. Well, he was a coordinator in 19 and 20 also. Okay. You count all the years, not just 1 or 2 big years. He was the OC from 19 to 22. Have to include Zeke? So wait a minute here, JM. You think they're going to have what? Okay, so he averaged 6 carries. Okay, let's take a look at Zeke. Zeke wasn't on the team last year, right? Ezekiel Elliott stats. So Pollard averaged 6. $244. There's not a chance in hell. There's not a chance in hell Saquon Barkley's getting 237 carries this year. There's no way he's getting 244 carries. Not a chance. Not a chance. It's not what you do. The most you're going to have is 220 carries. Now, you're saying you're going to take targets away from your wideouts then, and you're going to be more of a run-dominated. So wait, what you're saying, JM, is that they're going to be more of a run-dominant team. Is that what you're saying? Xander brought this point up, and it was great. Question's going to be, because I think he asked Paul this question this morning. I think he's Barkley. We're going to be balanced? Since when? The hiring of Kellen Moore? I can't say that on June 28th. I know that. Howie said 300 touches, so we'll see. Saquon Barkley, has he ever had 300 carries in his life? Has Barkley ever carried the ball 300 times in his life? Let's take a look at that. Saquon Barkley stats. Let's take a look at that. No. He's never had 300 carries. Most he's ever had is 295 2 years ago, and in his first year, 261. Saquon Barkley did not have 301 carries in 2019. He did not. I just looked it up. We'll see. Hey, get this. I'm not talking about pass receiving. I was talking carries. I wasn't talking that. Okay. Let's do the Dallas Cowboys now. Here's my Big Seals takeaway for 2024 in the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know what all in means. I have no idea what all in means. None. No idea. Get this, JM. And after the 2019 season, take a look at Zeke's carries after 2019, all the way to 22. Look at his carries. They went down under Kellen Moore. Did they not? Just to make a point one last time before we get to the Cowboys here. Am I right, JM? Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke Elliott stats. Here's under Kellen Moore. Carries. From 2019 to 22. Went from 301, 244, 237, 231 to 184. Oh, wait, not 184 because he wasn't the primary carrier. But quite frankly, you got to remember something. They had a running attack. They ran the ball more than you did. You didn't have running backs with those kind of numbers. And in that process there was only 2 years that Zeke Elliott had 1,000 yards rushing. In 5 years, he had 1,357 in 19, and he had 1,000 yards in 2021. And here, just take a look at what he was doing, too, when it came to yards per carry. They weren't very effective. You don't have a 1,000-yard rusher in 2 of the 5 years that you give a guy the ball 244 times? You got to be kidding me, man. You don't really believe that the Eagles are going to give him 250 carries, do you? You think Saquon Barkley is going to carry the ball more than any back since Brian Westbrook? No way. That's not why you're paying Hurts $50 million. You want him to be a passer. So wait, did they bring in Kellen Moore for Saquon Barkley, or did they bring him in for Jalen Hurts? Who'd they bring him in for? Bro, no way. I'll agree to disagree. Let's get to the Cowboys. All in. That's the theme of the 2024 Dallas Cowboys. I have no idea what the hell that means. None. All in. No idea what that means. 0 work in free agency this year. Now, I'll tell you this, the Cowboys, since 2013, are 106 and 73, 3-6 in the postseason since 2013, with no advances to the NFC title game or even a divisional round. On paper, the Cowboys have less talent. Prescott was second in the most valuable player award race last year in 2023. Led the NFL in passing touchdowns. Led the NFL in passing touchdowns last year in 2023 with Mike McCarthy as the play caller. Your running game is atrocious in Dallas now. What's the guy's name? Rico Dowdley? Who's Rico Dowdley? That's your running back in Dallas? Rico Dowdley? CeeDee Lamb had a great year. 1749. Again, he's a slot receiver, though. That diminishes those numbers. It's like telling me the right tackle position on offense, he's more valuable than the left offensive tackle. It's not the case. He did have 135 receptions and 12 touchdowns. It's a hell of a year. It's a hell of a season. 1749. 135 catches he had. I know, Spider Rico, right, Kyle? Spider Rico. Rico Dowdley. Mike Zimmer's a hire. He's kind of in the old school of like a Vic Fangio kind of guy. He does have a Super Bowl ring. He was on that Switzer staff back in the day as a DB coach. Micah Parsons in the last 3 years has 40 and a half sacks. Okay, so my problem with him is that he's a one-dimensional type guy. The Dallas Cowboys, one more time, I'll say it again to you. I don't see it. I really just don't see it. I mean, I don't. JM goes, the Cowboys didn't improve anywhere. All their moves were lateral or downgrades. It's completely. That's a factual statement. Where'd you get better? Where have the Cowboys gotten better? Who's your number? Hey, by the way, I will say this. Okay, look, that kid Jake Ferguson. Would you take Jake Ferguson over Dallas Goedert? 71 catches, 5 touchdowns, 761 yards. You know why I would take him over Dallas Goedert? He's reliable. Dallas Goedert is not reliable. He's not reliable. There's always an injury with him. Every year that he has had the last 5 years, he's missed significant time. Availability, too, has to be part of the equation. Just because you're Bo Jackson and you got more talent than Austin Eckler still puts up 30 touchdowns in receiving and catching and puts the football in the end zone. He's more productive than Bo Jackson. Is he a better player? No. Is he more productive? Yes. Production has to matter, friends. You can't just assume something and call him better than the next guy when the guy's outperforming him. I mean, well, Goddard's a better player. Well, he's not outperforming him, and he's not outproducing him. What's he doing? Chills, are you saying that you think that Jake Ferguson's a better ball player? No, I'm saying he's a more productive player. Last year, he was a more productive football player than Dallas Goedert, by far. And Dak Prescott also was more productive than Jalen Hurts. He finished second in the MVP voting. They've got some players. And by the way, this Tyler Smith is probably the best offensive lineman they have now. And it's probably taken the baton from Zach Martin. And I like Zach Martin. But I think this Tyler Smith guy's probably a better football player now in their offensive line. His production is because of Dak. Well, someone's got to throw him the ball, dude. Goddard's injuries were mostly flukes. Hey, Ben, he's injury prone. He's injury prone. He misses ball games. Were flukes. 5 years in a row, flukes? They'd be like, Washington and the Cowboys have better linebacker regular season stats. And I'm like, where were the playoff stats the past 2 rounds in 30 years? Hoss, your linebackers are the worst in the league. It's true, though, Sills. They were fluky. Jack, I'm not denying that. Here, Jack, let's do this with Goddard here. I'm sorry I'm doing it on the phone here. 21 was a okay. So let's take a look at that. Dallas Goedert stats. Let's take a look at Dallas Goedert here. Dallas Goedert stats. Okay. See how many games he's missed in the last 5 years. Dallas Goedert, Eagle tight end stats. Okay. Let's see how many ball games he has missed in the last 5 years. Okay. So in 2020, I believe Zach Ertz was still on the ball team. But in 2000, since he's been in the league with 16 games, and you can't really look early because he probably didn't get an opportunity to really play a lot because Zach Ertz was still in the building here. When did Zach Ertz leave? 21? That sound right? It was that really crazy moment in 21. So let's just go from 21 here. So he missed 3 games in 2020. When Ertz got hurt, he missed 8 games. In 2021, he missed 3 games. In 2022, he missed 5 games. In 2023, he missed 3 games. I mean, you can count on this guy to miss 3 to 5 games a year. Those aren't wear and tear injuries. I don't give a shit what they are. Those are lack of availability injuries. Jason Kelce's missed 1 game playing center with all that traffic in the middle. That's durability and reliability. A JM. You keep and listen. Once again, are you available to play on Sunday? I really don't care what the thing is. Are you playing Sunday? Yes or no? No. Okay. Can't count on you. I mean, Jalen Hurts the last 3 years has not been able to rely on Dallas Goedert whatsoever in stretch runs. He's been injured. He hasn't helped the offense. Ben goes, is he injury prone or is he unlucky? Well, you can pick whatever you want to pick. You can pick whatever you want to pick. You can say whatever you want to say on that. Yeah. How about this? Aren't we all sitting here about time ready to do this now? Hey, man, this guy's he's making $15 million a year, too. You got to get more than 50 catches out of him, don't you? Wouldn't you think? I look at the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to wrap it up before I get to Xander here. I look at the Dallas Cowboys, and I go, I don't see it. Where are you getting your production from? Rico Dowdley? That's your running back? Your O-line's not as bad as I thought. But Brandon Cooks? What's he done since he got to Dallas? All right. Let's get to Xander. He's had a really great week with guys coming on that program. Birds 365.